everybody, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 19 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show where we take you back through all of human history and give you examples of absolute incredible moments of utter stupidity so that you can take lessons from other people's mistakes and never repeat them again. But who are we kidding? We're humans, we like making mistakes, and sometimes the mistakes involve disappearing for days and not being seen in public, and like nobody's seen your tweets or anything, and your hands look all fucked up. Like, what's going on? Where are you, dude? We need you to point fingers at, come
He'll
back.
He'll show up on a roof somewhere. Nope. Oh, the golf course. That's where he's at.
In his underwear, running around. chasing a squirrel or something like that, just like really weird behavior, and all of a sudden, like, the president's not feeling well. Anyway, joining me as ever is my amazing friend and co-host Derek. Derek, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good, doing pretty great. I've got a long weekend, so I'm happy.
Yeah, so is it Labor Day there this weekend, or is that next weekend?
That is this weekend. Yes,
this weekend.
I'm off again tomorrow. For those of you that are listening to this live. If you're not, I'm off whenever the day was I was off prior to when you listen to this.
I'm off next Labor Day before that's also abolished. I had a bank holiday last week. I don't think it was anything specific, but I spent like the whole day like mostly napping on the sofa, and I regretted it because I ended up having so much work to do last week that I could barely catch my breath, and I ended up working Saturday as well to kind of catch up, and I'm still not done. It's rolling over into next week now, so hopefully your Labor Day doesn't like impede your ability or disrupt the rest of your week, but it's a good thing. Have you got any plans for that day?
We're gonna do a barbecue at the in-laws here as soon as I'm done with this. We're heading over there.
Lovely. That's going to be so good. What kind of barbecue do you guys typically have? Like what are the mainstays?
I am going to guess that it's burgers and dogs.
Nice. Okay. Good traditional stuff. And like with the dogs, are we talking like the full like relish, mustard, all the good stuff?
My father-in-law usually does some really good brats, like some beer brats, and then he'll do just the regular hot dogs, and you top it yourself. However you want, but they always have all the fixins, fresh and tomatoes and lettuce and onions and all that.
All the fixins.
All the fixins.
I remember that sketch. Yeah. Oh man, I do miss a good American barbecue. Although I think I've shown you pictures when I go back to Wales to visit my family. My mother has this like little Finnish built hobbit house in the garden. Mm-hmm. And in the center, as you walk in, there's this hexagonal barbecue pit in the middle that everyone can sit around and get warm. It's fucking enormous. It's like the size of a dining table. It's huge. And you just put stuff on there, leave it for an hour, you come out, there's like chill classical music playing, and you're just slowly eating your food in the twilight of the evening. It's so good. And also at the back of that fucking thing, it's just every alcoholic beverage you could ever possibly imagine. It's like, oh man, it's like Don Draper's living room. It's terrible. So yeah,
sounds horrible.
Yeah, it sounds terrible. It's one of those things where I never used to be bothered by barbecues, but that's because I think it was British barbecues and they're very boring. So when I've experienced good barbecues with like good quality meats, nice seasoning, really good prep, but also the vegetable stuff that goes in there, because my memories of barbecues, there wasn't much variety. It was just meat. But actually, if you do corn, if you do things like halloumi cheese and really like peppers and onions, kebabs and stuff like that.
What cheese?
Halloumi. Right. This is a big thing in the UK now. Over the last like 5 years, halloumi sort of exploded. It's like a Cypriot cheese, I think. Maybe it's Cypriot, maybe it's Crete. Anyway, it's you can have it as it is, but the majority of people who have halloumi, they grill it or put it on a barbecue, and it's like it's very salty. And a tiny little bit slimy, not in a bad way, but like a little bit slimy. I'm not selling it well. So slightly salty, slightly slimy. It's not cum, and but the main thing,
cheese.
halloumi cheese tastes like cum, not cum. I promise. But it's squeaky. That's the main thing. Like when you eat it, it kind of squeaks. It makes a squeaking sound in your voice. But actually, with like a burger or like a bunch of vegetables and stuff, it's a nice because it's so salty, and a different texture. It's like a nice.
I think I just
change.
realized why our videos are never monetized.
Well, thankfully, YouTube has removed the necessity to not swear for the first 70 seconds of your video anymore. So fuck. Thank you, YouTube, for coming to your senses. While we're talking about coming to your senses, that's a terrible segue. I'd like to thank the various people who show common sense and pay to help us out over on Patreon, and those people are Jesse Christ, Kimberly, Andrew Zavara, Dilly Bob, Silent Crisis, Carrion, Suzanne, and Toasterzoid. Thank you all so much for supporting us over on Patreon. And if you would like to sling us some cash to help us out, it's only $3 a month minimum. You can go in there and you'll get access to a welcome gift. You'll get behind-the-scenes footage from our lives. You'll get options to access to our scripts. There we go, I got there in the end. Historical sites that we go and visit. You'll also get exclusive monthly videos. We just put one up yesterday that was an hour and 27 minutes of exclusive content that you won't see on YouTube.
Yeah, we had a good hang.
What's that?
I said we had a good hang yesterday.
We had a really good hang. It was there was a lot of stuff talked about, and I showed you Fleabag for the first time, and you were kind of surprised by that.
What a show!
That's a way to break your audience after the news by making them watch Fleabag. Holy shit. And also, if you go over onto Patreon, you get an annual gift, which we'll be sending out very soon. It's made by us, it's handmade, and it's exclusive to the podcast. So yeah, please go over and support us. Also, we're over on Instagram. If you find us at History's Greatest Idiots, we post shorts of our long-form podcast episodes, as well as memes that we create, completely original and not stolen, I promise. I still have got one in the barrel, which I may or may not release, depending on how much the political climate declines. But yeah, Derek told me half a year ago, like, no, don't put that out there. We might get into a lot of trouble. So I make memes that are very close to the line, and sometimes they cross it, and I don't release them. But maybe I'll put it on Patreon. Maybe we won't get in trouble. Maybe we will. It was very offensive. If you're rich, it was very offensive. Really.
I'm not rich.
No, I'm not rich, and I doubt many people listening to our podcast are billionaires. So
it's a
maybe
funny haha joke
that would probably get us into a lot of trouble. So yeah. And also, if you go over to Spotify, you can watch all of our videos there, because on Spotify, unlike on YouTube, which no hate on YouTube, thank you guys for watching on YouTube, but over on Spotify, we earn money from the views. Like, not a huge amount, but enough to pay for a bunch of stuff. So little bits here and there. So if you go over to Spotify and watch our videos, History's Greatest Idiots, we get some money for that. So that'd be great. This episode, this topic that we're going to be covering, you actually suggested it to me a while ago. Yes. A few months ago now, I think.
It's been a minute.
It has been a while. Obviously, we had like technical issues, and I was ill, Derek was traveling, and a bunch of stuff got in the way, and we had to release a couple of Greatest Hits episodes. They've done really well, but, you know, it's time to get back to the original stuff now. So you actually suggested this to me a while ago. And it's from your neck of the woods, right? But you have no memory of this, as I understand it.
I don't really. I think it's Michigan.
It is.
Up in that sort of area.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm from the Minnesota area, so it's like Michigan, Minnesota's close.
Sure. And I'm probably... Sorry?
Midwesty,
yeah. You know, you got all of that stuff. And this is... I remember hearing about it, not at the time, but like a few years later. And it's the kind of thing that people revisit every now and then. You hear someone will make a YouTube video on it, and here we are making a podcast episode on it. But I will be asking you for like your perspective, because this is kind of your neck of the woods to a certain extent, the Michigan, Minnesota area. So I'd like to tell you all today the story of David Hahn, the radioactive Boy Scout. Today's story is about a teenager who decided that earning a merit badge wasn't enough. he needed to potentially irradiate an entire Michigan neighborhood in the process of earning that badge. Ladies and gentlemen, meet David Charles Hahn, better known as the Radioactive Boy Scout or the Nuclear Boy Scout, depending on which flavor of terrifyingly incompetent you want to go with this one. Born on October the 30th, 1976. So he's like 5 years older than us, like half a
Gen
decade older.
Xer?
He's a Gen X, full on, right, just towards the end of a Gen Xer there. So I think millennials are like 79, I think is the cutoff point. We're part of the Zennial, elder millennial people, because we were talking about this on the Patreon exclusive video. We remember things like Betamax and making our own VHS and stuff like that, but we're also able to do linear editing and use AI and stuff. So that's what kind of defines a Zennial, is the technological changes they've lived through.
Right. And then, oh man, I was going to make a joke about falling in love with AI, but I don't know which generation's doing that.
I think all of them at the moment, all of the suckers are falling in love with it. But yeah, it's useful.
Who's ones with the AI significant others?
Oh god, that's going to be terrifying when there's like AI love bots. Oh my god.
Oh, they're all over, aren't they?
Are they? Oh, that's weird. Oh.
Not like actual bots, but I mean, like people have the AI girlfriends and boyfriends. I imagine mostly girlfriends.
I'm sure. I'd imagine mostly girlfriends too. But you know, listen, each to their own. No judgment in this world for kink and attraction. But yeah, you know, just try talking to humans as well. You might find a real, actual human that wants to, you know, doink you. So, you know, get out there and try it.
Yeah.
You know, and if not, sure, fall back into AI. It'll tell you exactly what you want to hear, and do it with a really sexy voice that it stole from a dead person.
Ooh. I'm still going to do a study to find out which generation has the highest instance of falling in love with an AI spouse.
Yes, I'd imagine.
I feel like it's Zillennials.
I feel like it probably is our our lonely generation. Our parents are falling in love with dictators, but we're falling in love with AI.
Fair.
Yeah, it's true. So anyway, back to David Hahn. He's born October the 30th, 1976, in Royal Oak, Michigan, which I'm not super familiar with. David Hahn was the kind of kid who made other parents grateful that their teenagers were endlessly watching Charlie Kirk videos, building pipe bombs in the garage, and swearing murderous vengeance on anyone who doesn't subscribe to alt-right conspiracy theories. You know, normal teenage boy stuff.
What?
David Hahn, what I'm saying is David Hahn was so out there that actually, you know, oh my God, my kid's been caught with a flick knife in school. Oh, well, that's okay. At least he's not, you know, doing what David Hahn's doing in his fucking garage.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. David looked at the elements on the periodic table, kind of like a lot of people looked at Pokemon on Pokemon Go about 8 years ago. And the radioactive elements were his version of event-exclusive Pokemon like Shaymin and Mew. I have no idea what I just said. I wasn't around for the Pokemon Go shit.
Okay. I don't know anything about Pokemon, but especially that's another thing supposed to be our generation.
Yeah, I feel like our generation is slightly younger. Like, some people are making big money on these fucking Pokemon cards. Although it's a weird thing. It's basically gambling. You get these, like, card decks that are, like, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years old, and they cost hundreds of dollars. And
really?
Yes, a lot of the older ones. And you peel them open, and, you know, if you find a rare Pokemon in there, it can be, like, the base value is usually, like, maybe a couple of $100, but if you then send it away for grading the card itself and it comes back a 10 and it's framed and stuff, it can be worth like thousands and thousands of dollars.
You send it away?
Yeah, there's places that grade stuff. So obviously, like, you know, if you go to an auction, and this is as old as time, so, you know, you've got like
I misheard you. I thought you sent your Pokemon away for grazing. I thought that you sent it to a place and they magicked it up and sent you back a
version
Pokemon.
3, yeah, like an upgraded version.
Yeah,
no, it's like the old baseball cards. So,
okay, I'm dumb. Sorry.
That's okay. And I you know, I've done this as well because I have a mint first edition Swamp Thing number 33 signed by Alan Moore. So yeah, and it's an authentic Alan Moore signature, and it's I think it got like a 6. It's not in particularly great condition, 6 out of 10, but it's worth like a few £100 basically,
Okay.
because it's got his signature on it, and that's purely it. But yeah, so that's the Pokemon deal. A lot of people are getting rich off it, so we're
Nice.
clearly in the wrong business.
I've learned some more about Pokemons.
Yeah, and I didn't even know this. I find it fascinating watching the videos. I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but when someone, oh my god, this is like, if it comes back a PSA 10, it's worth like $4,000, and I just spent $300 on the pack, and I'm like, oh wow, that's amazing, but you're essentially gambling, so
Okay.
don't get too hardcore into it. Anyway, picture this. Let's go back in time. It's the mid-90s. The Cold War is over. Blockbuster, still in like full sprint ahead, still in existence. Metallica only slightly suck. And the biggest problem teenagers face is getting a seat in the cinema on the weekends because it's always packed out. That's. Do you remember that life?
I remember those days.
Oh, to go back before the world was fucked. That being said, there were still a few problems, not quite as many as the 80s, because the 80s was a fucking scary time to be a child. Everyone was terrified of the nuclear weapons that had existed in the USSR was sort of magically disappearing, and people were genuinely concerned about that.
Yeah.
They made a bunch of films about it.
Yeah, I remember being scared that at any minute somebody could push a button and we'd all die.
Yep, I remember that being a prevailing fear of my childhood in the 80s.
Then at some point, apparently somebody hid the button.
Yep, they hid the button, they picked up the phone, like, oh, you know what, you're not so much of a dick anyway. Yeah, all right. And then that was the problem, and then the USSR fell apart, and everyone's, like, the nuclear weapons just went missing, and everyone's terrified that someone's going to show up with a backpack in, like, London and just fucking set one off.
No, but they hid them in Iraq. No, they weren't there.
Maybe they're in Iran. Let's go and find out.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It's a shell game.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a zero-sum scenario. So that was everyone's fear in the mid-90s, and the government is spending billions of dollars making sure dangerous radioactive materials don't fall into the hands of terrorists, rogue nations, or the guys from Mythbusters.
I mean, all except for that last one sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, it does. Could you imagine that episode of Mythbusters? It's like they're shut down mid-production. How did you get this bomb? Jesus, why is there duct tape everywhere? Meanwhile, in suburban Michigan, a 17-year-old with a chemistry set and an alarming lack of self-preservation instincts is casually building what amounts to be a neutron gun in his mother's shed.
Oh.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy. I can't believe when I read this, I was like, this is insane. The weirdest part is that it worked. Yeah, he went all Dr. Manhattan on us, basically. So David's journey into radioactive madness began innocently enough. He was inspired by a book called The Golden Book of Chemistry Experiments, which is one step away from the Anarchist Cookbook, if you really look into it. Only this one is somehow still available to buy online to this day. It's super cheap. I think you can probably get it on Amazon, although it's one of the forewords probably won't be David Hahn, because this is what inspired him to destroy a neighbourhood. This book sparked his obsession with collecting samples of every element on the periodic table. The real trouble started when David earned his Atomic Energy Merit Badge in the Boy Scouts. And why is that even a fucking thing? Why was America running out of nuclear engineers that they were trying to inspire the Boy Scouts to do it?
It's my understanding that he was supposed to earn some other merit badge, and he decided that he could also found this obscure merit badge that he could earn, and he wanted to earn that instead.
Nice. Okay. It's interesting that it's like not been removed. It's still sort of like it's been mothballed. It's floating around there in the background. Like, well, you could do this, but you're going to have to go to a nuclear site and blah, blah, blah. It's like, why was that ever even a thing?
Hey, nobody was supposed to know that it existed. We did it for that one guy's kid.
Yeah, we can't stop him now. He's got a shitload of lead. Just let him go. For most Boy Scouts, this badge involves learning about nuclear power plants, apparently, maybe visiting one, understanding basic atomic theory, basically only theoretical stuff, or like little visits here or there, basically. What are you smiling at? Have you found the book?
No, I have not at
You
all.
have, yes. So
found the book.
people who are listening online, we haven't found the book. If you're only listening, we definitely haven't found the book. The people who are viewing us over on Spotify may have a different take on what we're talking about here right now. Jesus Christ. I like the illustrations of this potentially fictional book that we're not seeing right now. That's really appealing.
Hey, how about that?
Yeah, they're gonna be knocking down your door if you buy that book. I'm pretty certain.
I just downloaded it on accident.
Oops. Yeah, you're going to have an interesting call in the morning. So stuff that required actually handling materials wasn't really part of the course. It didn't turn you into a Russian spy who just called Putin a bitch, basically. Like, it was all theoretical. You weren't going to get murdered over it. But David wasn't most Boy Scouts. David looked at a merit badge requirement to understand nuclear energy and thought, you know what would really demonstrate my understanding is to actually build a nuclear reactor. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that would demonstrate it pretty well.
It's, yeah, like, here. What is this? Why is it glowing? Oh, fuck. Let me be clear about something here. When we say David was trying to build a nuclear reactor, we're not talking about some half-hearted science fair project, like the volcano with the foam that comes out of the top or anything like that. This kid was dead serious about building this shit. He wasn't content with making a volcano out of baking soda and vinegar like the majority of America. David literally wanted to split atoms in his fucking back garden shed. Consequences be damned as well. He didn't seem to understand the consequences or care about them, so maybe.
I mean, what are the consequences? How dangerous could it really be? I just found the book on the internet, and it's got cake in it. Right?
It's yellow
cake.
Yellow cake, delicious. But yeah, also, I feel like this. Yeah, because there he is. There's David Hahn many years later, and a very happy younger David Hahn, I think, on the right. Or is that someone else?
Nuclear reactor.
And that's fucking terrifying. I feel like this kid didn't watch enough Hanna-Barbera cartoons growing up, because if he had, he'd have seen the possible results of radioactive material. Like, it's going to burn a fucking hole in the earth and it'll sink through it. So.
I feel like maybe he didn't read enough about Madame Curie.
Yes, about the person who discovered radium, who died of radiation poisoning, and her husband, who was trampled to death by a horse. Unrelated, but yeah.
We got to watch out for them too. Horses
you do. You're so focused on your radioactive research that you walk out into the middle of the street and you get fucking run over by a carriage. So that's radiation's fault too. His plan was to build what's called a breeder reactor, a type of nuclear reactor that produces more fissile material than it consumes. So you're creating a nuclear reaction and it's giving off energy. These things are so complex and dangerous that even trained nuclear engineers with decades of experience and multi-billion-dollar budgets proceed with extreme caution. My God, is that it? Is that the one? Oh, okay.
One of
guys,
them.
go. We're 24 minutes and 15 seconds in, something like that. Go over onto the stream on Spotify. If you're listening to this now, go and watch it. We've found the actual footage of the radioactive thing. It's really impressive. It looks legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, boy, how do you keep the radioactivity inside it?
That's what he didn't think about. Also, the part of it on the right-hand side, it looked a little bit like a leaf blower. Like, is he just cobbling this shit together, Rube Goldberg style? Is that what we're getting here?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Here, what is this?
Yeah, well, it does look like a fucking vacuum cleaner head, and that just looks like something that's going to light up for no good reason. That just looks like a. I think
there's a projector on here.
Yeah, there's a projector, a couple of pistons, maybe some scuba diving equipment attached to it as well. Like, there's all sorts of random shit on there, and also tidy your cables up, dude. Like, this isn't Junior Scott. Like, get a cable tidier for that. Could you imagine? Someone breaks in and trips over that. Anyway, David thought he could knock one out in his spare time using household items and mail-order radioactive materials. He's confident, I'll give him that. Most parents would be thrilled that their teenage son has a hobby. Although I feel like if your son's like, I'm going out to the shed again all the time, you should be a little bit worried about that. He's probably got a massive stack. It's the mid-90s. There's probably all sorts of porn out there in that shed.
That's probably why nobody went out there to check on him.
Exactly. They're like, listen, let's just be glad he's getting out of the house. It's the fucking... He's also a Gen X kid, so, like, his parents would have been like, listen, if you need a drink, there's a fucking garden hose. Go for it. Okay? Just drink out of that shit. So... Also, oh man, he's near Flint, so maybe don't do that. So how exactly does one go about obtaining nuclear radioactive materials, especially when you're 17 years old and living in suburban Michigan? Well, if you're David Hahn, you get creative. And by creative, I mean you embark on a scavenging mission that would make a Fallout game proud.
Oh, boy.
David's shopping list read like something out of a supervillain's diary. He needed americium, I think it is. Yeah, that's it. So that was one of the last things.
Is that the thing that stops Homelander? Is that like his kryptonite?
It is. Yeah, it's the thing that stops the progression of the working class. So americium. No, that was discovered by a bunch of guys from Harvard. Yeah. Oh, was it Harvard or was it one of the other ones? Anyway, they discovered a bunch of these like later elements in the periodic table, and they started naming them, like fermium, named after Fermi, and all of the Einsteinium, and all these things named after. Yeah, Einstein's got his own element, and all of these people. Yeah, and americium was one of the last ones discovered because they're like, well, yeah, sure, okay, our country, whatever. So he needed americium, if I'm pronouncing that right. So he dismantled smoke detectors. Not just one, nor two, but literal hundreds of the fucking things, because smoke detectors to this day have a trace element of americium in them, which is a slightly radioactive thing that has a very tiny, tiny half-life.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that because of the, like, is it in the mercury sub?
Yeah, it's part of... So, I can't remember how it works. I watched a video on this weeks ago. But,
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But like, it comes... it's part of a very unstable series of elements that were discovered. So, there was a big problem where like they were trying to get more and more fission material from all of these things, but like it's almost, you don't get enough material to test it, and when you do test it, you don't have enough time because the stuff like fucking evaporates and disappears into nothingness. So this is why he had to get hundreds of these smoke detectors, because it disappears so quickly.
Okay.
And also imagine being the parents of a kid who's constantly you're wondering why all your fucking smoke detectors in your house keep mysteriously disappearing. Like the fucking town burns down because this kid is building a reactor and no one's got any fucking smoke detectors. He also needed thorium. So to do that, David raided camping supply stores, buying up thorium-containing lantern mantles. So, those, yeah.
Okay.
Those have got radioactive material in them, thorium. These mantles give off a bright white light when heated, thanks to the thorium coating. So he would take the coating off of hundreds of these mantles using all of his like pocket money and
my goodness
chore money. Yeah, and he's so patient. It's unbelievable.
None of this is terrifying at all.
Yeah, there's radioactive material everywhere. Who knew? Well, actually, we all kind of knew. They also happen to be mildly radioactive, which is exactly why David was looking for them. Why are they radioactive? Why is this going on with the Boy Scouts of America? Why are they surrounded by radioactive material? Also, maybe don't ask too many questions about that organization. I guess the people in the stores are also just happy he's not using a fake ID to buy booze. So they're like, okay, teenager that just wants to buy camping materials. I'm on board with that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he's just scared of the dark. It's a lot of lanterns, He's scared of the dark. He's afraid of the fires.
Absolutely. And also, like, this 17-year-old kid comes in, and, like, he's quite bright, like, energetic from all accounts. So
radioactive material making him glow.
Because he's humming. But I feel like most people would be like, they'd want to encourage, especially, like, if you own a store and all of these people are coming in and maybe trying to buy illicit material off you all the time, you'd want to encourage a teenager who has a hobby that looks like it's wholesome. So if he needs a load of camping materials, because maybe he tells you, and this kid is really convincing when he lies to people, maybe he tells you he's going with a large group and he's been sent in to buy it. Like, you're like, okay, I want to encourage this. This is great for the youth of the local area. So, yeah.
I mean, oh boy. Oh, hey, look at this. It
What have you
tells you,
found?
I would have never known this, but right there inside the smoke detector,
Yeah.
it tells you that it's radioactive.
Yeah. There you go. And that's, there you go, americium 241. Wow. And it's a tiny amount as well. If you look at it next to some of the batteries, that's a small amount. So you got hundreds of these.
Yeah,
Yep. So
that's
there's
what
your
it looks like
radioactive
inside
warning.
there.
Don't go licking your smoke detectors, kids. That's our advice. Not that that's a big trend. Could you imagine if that became a TikTok challenge?
My goodness.
Lick your smoke detectors. So, but there's more. David obviously needed radium. So where do you get radium from? Because at this point, everyone's aware of how dangerous radium is. It's not like the 19th century where people are fucking rubbing it on their teeth and turning the lights out and dancing around for fun like they fucking used to, or having like huge chunks of radioactive material in their pockets because it glows up and it looks cute and it might be fun at parties. Like, that's not happening anymore because people realize it's dangerous.
We figured it out.
Yeah, we kind of know it's dangerous, so we're just going to fill everything with plastic. That'll work out fine. But David needed radium, so what he did was he hit up antique stores looking for old clocks and watches.
Oh. Oh, he did pay attention to the Madame Curie stuff.
He fucking did pay attention to that. I'm curious stuff. Back in the 20th century, before people realized that painting watch dials with radioactive material might not be the best idea, manufacturers used radium-based paint to make clock faces glow in the dark. And also, I don't know if you've told me this or someone told me this, when the people making the clocks were applying it to get the paintbrushes the right shape and style, sometimes they'd lick the paintbrushes with their tongues to get and then dib it in the radium paint and paint it on, wash it off a little bit, dib it again, put it back in their mouth again, lick it, and like,
My goodness.
scary, dude.
Nobody told him?
Yeah, and also mostly young women who would do this because it was one of the few jobs in manufacturing they could get. So they were unknowingly ingesting radium every single day just because they wanted to get their brushes to a fine point. Many of them died horrible deaths. Yet there you go, New Jersey's radium girls and the NIST trained scientists who came to their aid. So they were just doing this out of habit, sadly.
Boy.
Yeah, they died horrible deaths from radiation poisoning, leading to some of the first workplace safety laws in American history, all thanks to the horribleness of this. But for David, these tragic relics were just another source of radioactive material. Where's he getting all this money from, you might be asking? Well, his parents are letting him spend his allowance on stuff like this. It's very hands-off parenting, and they're basically asleep at the wheel at this point. But they should be making some connections, like, okay, he's got camping materials, smoke detectors, clocks. Like, this is such a weird collection of stuff he's putting together.
What the hell was his allowance?
A lot. Like, antique clocks were expensive,
Yeah.
dude. Really? Like, you want to... Oh, I'll get a grandfather clock. That way I can get a lot of material. That was like hundreds of dollars back in the 90s, which is the equivalent of thousands of dollars today.
And
So-
he needed like 5, 6, 8 of them.
I know, exactly. And apparently his parents are just indulging him at this point. I kind of get it, but also, like, where are they getting their money from? So there's more elements he needs. For tritium, he turned to gun sights. This is the one part where they should have been really concerned. Military-grade gun sights often contained tritium to make them glow in low-light conditions. So, hey, for the soldiers have been sticking their eyes right next to that shit. David, our enterprising little nuclear engineer, somehow got his hands on tritium-containing gun sights at 17. At this point, any reasonable person would ask, how is a 17-year-old boy acquiring all these materials without someone, somewhere, asking questions? The answer is a combination of pre-internet age, so there's no one's communicating really on that level, really lax regulations, and David's surprising talent for talking his way past authority figures. And this is where it gets really dark, very scary, and thank God he wasn't an actual evil genius. When he couldn't find the materials he needed locally, he didn't give up. Instead, he started writing letters to government agencies and fucking nuclear facilities, posing as a college student working on a research project. This kid was catfishing Nuclear Regulatory Commission people back when catfishing meant, actually fishing for cats. That's what that means.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like, though, I mean, he wasn't really lying.
No.
I mean, he wasn't in college. And
he wasn't in college.
Experimenting.
He's stretching the truth. He is doing a research project. It's not official. He might go to college. He's not quite there yet. So he's doing a future lie, as it were.
Yeah.
He's like, it might happen in a few years. If he just waited a couple of years, this could have been perfectly legitimate, or at least slightly more legitimate. But anyway, he would write incredibly detailed letters, technical letters, asking specific questions about nuclear processes, reactor design, radioactive material handling. And here's the kicker: these scientists fucking responded with detailed answers. Government scientists, nuclear engineers, impressed by what they see in this bright young college student's enthusiasm for nuclear physics, would send him back detailed explanations of complex nuclear processes. They were essentially providing a teenager with a how-to guide to build nuclear weapons. Yeah.
Why?
Why wouldn't you check? Call the college.
But why are you...
They must be bored as fuck at their job.
They're so smart, and nobody wants to talk about that boring shit that when somebody wanted to talk about it, they were like, oh my God, let's talk.
My wife won't talk to me about any of this. Thank God someone's taking an interest, finally. Nowadays, if you ask a cop at the time, he might tase you and turn off his body cam while he does it.
It depends on where you're at.
Yeah, if you're in Washington, you just wait for the 30th day. They'll pull them all out and they won't pay them. That's what's going to happen with the National Guard. Yeah, they only get paid on the 30th day for the deployment.
End of the fiscal year's coming.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. They can write all that shit off. That's a good point. Anyway, one physicist from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission even sent David blueprints of a reactor design. Fucking blueprints. Where's the CIA? Where's the FBI? Nobody's looking after these people.
When is this?
1990. So he's 17. He was born in 76. So we're talking 93. Is that right? 94? Yeah, 1994. When did Jurassic Park come out?
96? 94.
94. I think it's not. It's 1993 or 1994. So around about the time Kurt Cobain dies.
Okay.
So using historic point markers here.
So the FBI was doing.
That was before Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah, I think that was the brief period of time where they were busy doing this.
Oh, they're suppressing their people from finding aliens. That's right.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's what it was.
That's what the FBI was busy doing. The CIA was busy off changing regimes. But yeah.
No, they were just moving coke like always.
Of course, yeah. Iran-Contra is still going on. So it's like sending a pyromaniac detailed instructions on how to build a flamethrower.
Wow.
Is what's happened here. And then being surprised when your fucking neighborhood burns down. The sheer incompetence of the adults in this story is almost as staggering as David's reckless ambition, to be honest.
I'm still just kind of in shock that, like, at no point was anybody like, well, what if it's somebody from an enemy combatant country? Like, we
know.
were still on the heels of the Cold War. We were so, like, enthralled with our victory that we figured nobody wants nukes.
You know what it is? I think everyone was just so relieved that Russia was no longer a threat. They're like, Russia's gone. Everyone loves us now. We're fine. The world loves us. Nobody hates America in the 90s. That's crazy. Nothing bad's going to happen in like 6 years. We'll be fine. But David's masterstroke of deception came when he started impersonating a professor to get hold of more materials. He would call... Yeah.
Too big of a lie.
I'm a professor.
Come on.
Can you try to call yourself in as your parents?
Yeah, he even called himself Professor Hahn. That's how deep this went. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you hear that name, you're like, okay, yeah, maybe we poached him from the Nazis. Maybe that's where he's come from. It's Hahn. Yeah, it's close, maybe. And he asked technical questions about reactor design and radioactive material procurement like he's been doing, but he's got the added gravitas of calling himself a professor now. His voice apparently hadn't changed enough to give him away, and his knowledge was impressive enough that no one questioned whether a professor would be calling from what sounded like a teenager's bedroom. His Soundgarden playing in the background or something. I'll have you know that the entire faculty has an affinity for the melodic complexities of Primus. Though these...
My name's Mud.
My name is Bud. I'm a professor. Through these conversations, David learned about neutron sources, neutron moderators, and the complex dance of nuclear fission. He discovered that he could potentially create a neutron source by mixing radium and beryllium, a combination that would produce neutrons when the alpha particles from the radium hit the beryllium atoms. It's like learning how to juggle with hand grenades. Or,
that's
at least
that's how I learned.
Yeah, that's how I learned everything. I just start juggling it. Like, piranha's dangerous? Let's find out. Armed with this ill-gotten knowledge and his collection of radioactive materials, David set up shop in the shed behind his mother's house in Commerce Township, Michigan, which, as I understand it, is like kind of quite a working-class area. So I think like people just sort of kept to themselves, and that will have helped him a little bit. Like, just don't look over the fence at what your neighbours are doing. Give them a bit of privacy.
Yeah.
This wasn't just any shed, though. This is where there's now ground zero for what would become one of the most dangerous backyard experiments in American history. And I think you've got a picture of David in front of his shed/studio.
Workshop.
His little workshop, yeah. I mean, the only thing he's missing is writing a manifesto, to be honest with you. But yeah, he looks 17. Like, Jesus.
He looks like he's going to go skateboarding.
Yeah.
He looks like he's listening to Primus while he's doing this.
Fucking does. He is Primus. Core audience right there. Oh my god, if only he'd just become a race car driver. So David's reactor design was elegantly simple and catastrophically dangerous. He took a block of lead, probably left over from some plumbing project, and drilled a hole through the middle. This would serve as the core for his reactor. He then took his collection of radioactive materials, the americium from smoke detectors, the radium from old clocks, the thorium from lantern mantles, and mixed them with beryllium and aluminium powder. Probably threw some Mountain Dew in the area as well, just to keep it going. Holy shit, yeah, that's a 17-year-old's.
Look at he wrote caution.
He did. If only he put that on the
elements.
outside. Yeah, he'd written the elements on the wall. Man, this is
Careful,
kind of
this
Breaking
shit's
Bad.
dangerous.
It really is. Why is that a cat cage at the bottom there? What is, or is that like a
Schrodinger's
printer?
in there, his cat.
I really hope there isn't any animal near this.
There was no reporting of that at all.
Thank God. Thank God. This radioactive cocktail was wrapped in tin foil, because of course it was, and placed in the center of this lead block. Around this core, David arranged more foil-wrapped pieces of uranium and thorium. How the fuck did he get uranium? Creating what he believed would be a breeder reactor. He surrounded the entire thing with a reflector made from more radioactive materials, all held together with duct tape.
Because it,
duct tape is amazing. So I think you've got the next picture, which is the aftermath of what we're about to cover. So this is this isn't a scene from E.T. This is David Hahn's back garden after they fucking discovered what was going on. Jesus.
The after picture of the shed.
Yeah, although I like that they're all wearing Carhartt booties there as well. That's really cool. Jesus Christ. The result was a cobbled-together device that looked like something a mad scientist might build in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. But here's the terrifying part. It worked, sort of. David's contraption was producing neutrons. Not a lot of them, and certainly not in any kind of controlled and useful way, but neutrons nonetheless. He could measure the radiation with his Geiger counter, because of course this kid got a fucking Geiger counter. And the readings were climbing. Yeah, I mean, he didn't need one. He could have just licked it and saw what happened, really. His homemade neutron source was actually functioning, which meant he was successfully splitting atoms in his back garden shed. Great, now what, kid? What's the fucking end goal here? You know?
He's going to power his microwave.
Yeah, like, what was he planning on doing with this thing? Like, are energy prices that expensive in Michigan at this time?
I don't know, because I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the experiment? Just the experiment is, I wonder if I can do this.
Yeah, and listen, we're men. That's kind of part of our makeup. Like, oh, why do we walk up a mountain? Because it's there. You know, like that kind of bullshit thing. It's like, I achieved something. I finished it. I spoke to a guy a few weeks ago in my job, one of the interviews I was doing. This guy builds, like, huge AI, like, frameworks for companies and stuff, and they were releasing a product. And I asked this guy what he did in his spare time, and he was like, I build diesel tractor engines in my spare time. And I was like, what? Why diesel tractor engines? And he's like, well, I grew up on a farm, so I'm kind of fascinated by them for a start, because, you know, it's something that was part of my youth. But it was also, it's something that I can build and it's finished. And that's the goal. Because with AI, with designing stuff, you're kind of constantly working on it. It never finishes. It's like a George Lucas film. It's never really done. So he just wanted something that he could finish. And I get the feeling that with David Hahn, he was just like, I just want to build it, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
Didn't think about what he was going to do afterwards, though.
See, he should have gone like the Mikio Kaku and built a particle accelerator instead of a...
There you go.
Because that's what he did as a kid. That's
Yes.
a better genius thing to do, I think.
That's a smarter way of doing it. And, like, if you're going to do something, like, shoot for the stars, build a fucking time machine. You know, do a Doc Brown, for God's sake. Do something.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He fucking did, actually, because Doc Brown's first version of it was radioactive.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how he nearly
What's
died.
this? Now I gotta know when time... That might have been the problem. He might have been trying to build the damn...
Shit, maybe he was. Oh my God, maybe nobody's thought of this angle before, because that was a few years before this. This is like maybe 10 years after 85. Yes, this is like 10, 12 years. Maybe a bit more. Maybe less than 10 years after that. Maybe he saw that as a kid. Yeah.
9 years later.
Maybe he saw it as a kid, and he's
trying
like,
to build a flux capacitor.
Fuck, man, if only he'd had a DeLorean. I mean, it would have been 94, so what would have been a Chevy? Fucking wood paneling on the side of it. Much less impressive. Anyway,
like
he's
neon.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There's your time machine right there. Go back in time, get yourself some of those He-Man figures, bring them back into the present day, make a bit of money. Anyway, he could measure the radiation with his Geiger counter. Unfortunately, the radiation levels and the readings are climbing, and they're not slowing down. His homemade neutron source was actually functioning, which meant he was successfully splitting atoms in his back garden shed. But success in the world of amateur nuclear physics is relative. While David's reactor was producing neutrons, it was also producing something else, dangerous levels of radiation. And the radiation levels in and around the shed were climbing steadily, and David, in his teenage wisdom, had no real way of containing or controlling them. Just more tape.
Throw a blanket on it.
Yes, that's it. A blanket on
Put it
it.
in a blanket.
Pretend it's not there, and it'll all go away. The radiation wasn't just staying in the shed either. It was bleeding out onto the surrounding area, affecting his mother's house and potentially the entire neighborhood. David's bedroom, which was next to the shed, was becoming increasingly radioactive. And it's not just the socks that are sticking to the floor now. His mother's house was turning into a low-level radioactive waste site, and nobody knew it. David himself was being exposed to dangerous levels of radiation on a daily basis. Yeah, that's accurate. That is an accurate image of what we're dealing with here. Oh my God. And he would spend hours in the shed tinkering with his reactor, adjusting the configuration and trying to increase the neutron output. He wants more, this kid. He wants more radiation.
More power.
More power. He must be building the most amazing weapon. Every day he was absorbing more radiation, slowly poisoning himself in the pursuit of nuclear glory. I don't know if he was after glory, though, because he's clearly not stupid enough to tell anyone that he's doing this. Because, like, glory hunters want people to know that they're doing stuff. He's not told anyone.
You get it right.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But what's right to him? Like, he's split the atom at this point. Like, he's done the thing that Fermi and all these people did, but
he forgot what he was doing with it, and then he had to get. He was like, oh yeah, I gotta finish.
I've got to have an exit strategy. Why didn't I think of that? And even if the exit strategy was just fucking great big hole, throw it in that, we'll be fine.
Hide it under his bed.
Yeah. He didn't even have that. But David was very ambitious. The neutron source was just the beginning. He wanted to create a full breeder reactor, something that would actually produce more fissile material than it consumed. To do this, he needed to irradiate his thorium samples with neutrons, hoping to convert some of the thorium-232 into uranium-233, which is fissile and could potentially sustain a chain reaction. David would take his thorium powder and place it near his neutron source, bombarding it with neutrons in the hopes of creating the uranium. He would then measure the results with his Geiger counter, looking for signs that the thorium was becoming more radioactive, a sign that the transmutation was occurring. And incredibly, it worked.
So he was using his reactor to make more nuclear stuff?
Yes, he was doing alchemy, only with incredibly dangerous materials. Instead of trying to make gold, he's trying to make a bomb. So
maybe he was trying to make energy.
Maybe he was just trying to give us all free electricity. In which case, God bless you, sir. The thorium samples were becoming more radioactive over time, suggesting that at least some nuclear transmutation was taking place. David was actually achieving nuclear alchemy in his back garden shed, converting one element into another through neutron bombardment. The fact that a 17-year-old with no formal nuclear training was pulling this off is simultaneously impressive and absolutely fucking terrifying.
It's out of this world. Really?
It is impressive. Sad, but impressive.
Super stupid, and
So
also
stupid.
way smarter than that at the same time. Like, I could never do that, but I also wouldn't be dumb enough to do that.
Exactly, yeah. It's young Sheldon, basically. Only part young Sheldon, part Bond villain, basically. But success breeds ambition, and ambition breeds carelessness. So David started experimenting with different configurations, trying to increase the neutron flux and accelerate the transmutation process. He rearranged his radioactive materials, adjusted the geometry of his reactor, and generally tinkered with forces that could have easily killed him and everyone in the surrounding area. The radiation levels continued to climb. David's Geiger counter readings were getting higher and higher, indicating that his little science project was becoming genuinely dangerous. But instead of recognizing this as a sign to stop, David saw it as evidence that his reactor was working. In his teenage mind, more radiation meant more success. So, yeah.
He's doing what he set out to do.
Yes. And he is going to have so much cancer.
Doesn't know what he's doing with it.
He does not.
Doing it.
It's so scary. Meanwhile, David's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and probably glowy as well, I'd imagine. He was spending more and more time in the shed after staying out there until the early hours of the morning. His mother, Patty Hahn, was growing concerned, finally, about his obsession with this science project, but she had no idea how dangerous it had become. David was also becoming paranoid about his work. He was worried that someone might discover what he was doing and shut down his experiment before he could achieve his goal of building a working breeder reactor. He started taking precautions to hide his activities, working only at night, and being careful not to let anyone see inside the shed. How do you possibly do that? I mean, just
Told you, throw a blanket over it.
blanket over it and just tell people you're going for alone adult time down there, and they'll just leave you alone. They just want anything to do
You're
with it.
tenting for termites.
There you go. Yeah, that's what they did in Breaking Bad. That's the literal strategy they use later on in the series. You know, turn it into a tent, and then you can do a bunch of cooking in there.
Oh, you know what? It's 94. He hadn't seen Breaking Bad.
He hadn't seen Breaking Bad. Maybe he inspired it, some of this shit, honestly. He started taking precautions to hide his activities, although you can't hide radiation. While David was busy congratulating himself on his nuclear achievements, the invisible evidence of his work was spreading throughout the neighbourhood. The radiation wasn't contained to his shed or even his mother's property. It was detected up to 5 houses away in every direction. He is now producing a ground zero. This brings us to the night that changed everything. August the 31st, 1994. It was 2:40 a.m. in the morning when the Clinton Township Police received a call about a suspicious young man in a residential neighborhood apparently stealing tires from cars. I don't know what the fuck he needs tires for. Maybe he just wants a tire swing all of a sudden.
What radioactive shit is in tires?
He's It's probably loads. Maybe he's building a tire monster. Maybe that's his ultimate goal. He's making an army of tire mutants that he can command.
Oh my goodness.
When the officers arrived, they found 17-year-old David Hahn sitting in his car, claiming he was waiting to meet a friend. At 3 a.m., dude, you can't think of a better excuse than that. Really?
I was picking up a hooker.
I was buying drugs. Just say anything at this point. It's going to be better than what's happening.
I had just robbed the liquor store.
I have been injecting heroin into my toes. I stole a boat. Like, literally anything other than what's actually happening. David's story about waiting for a friend might have been believable for a few factors. Not believable, I should say. Firstly, of course, it's nearly 3 a.m. on a Wednesday night. Second of all, he was in a neighbourhood several miles from his home. And third, when the officers searched his car, they found a locked toolbox in the trunk containing a mysterious grey powder that made their portable radioactive detectors, which apparently they had, go off. Yeah.
Who stopped him?
Apparently the police have Geiger counters in 1994 Michigan. So
They just wander around with them? Dude, the 90s were weird. I had no idea we were so scared.
Maybe we were so scared of radioactive material that... But also, like, Michigan? Doesn't exactly... Maybe the ports, I guess. Maybe
to be fair, though, now I feel like maybe we should just put Geiger counters in all the police cars.
Fuck yeah. Better than the guns. Maybe more useful, you know?
Definitely useful.
Yeah. And maybe they thought people were going to poison the beer supply for America. Maybe that's why they had Geiger counters. Because there's some good beer in Michigan. Yeah.
Well, no. Mostly Wisconsin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Wisconsin, yeah. Plus cheese.
Yeah. Michigan just brings... That's where the cars are, man. He's just north of Detroit.
There you go. So they're worried about the automotive industry. So they found this grey powder and their portable radiation detectors go berserk. Imagine being those police officers. You respond to what you think is a routine call about petty theft, and suddenly you're dealing with a teenager who apparently has weapon-grade nuclear material in his trunk. It's like expecting to catch someone shoplifting, and instead they've stolen the Ark of the Covenant. You know,
right?
The grey powder in David's toolbox was, of course, radioactive material for his reactor. David has been in the process of moving his equipment, apparently worried that someone might discover his shed laboratory, and he was literally transporting radioactive material in the trunk of his car, driving around suburban Michigan with enough nuclear material to set off radiation alarms. There's probably even a glowing trail behind him.
I'm still not understanding. Like, I've never run across... I mean, I've never run around with, like, nuclear material, so I wouldn't know if I got pulled over and the cops knew I had nuclear stuff on me. I would never know that they would know that.
I know.
I mean, I guess now I know that police would know if you're running around with nuclear stuff, their little portable nuclear things go off.
I feel like, yeah, I think also, this is just a rule of thumb with police. Don't have any powder in your car of any kind. Like,
yeah, don't drive around with grandma in the urn.
Yeah, or even talc. You know, I mean, no one should be really using talcum powder anymore. But like, if let's say you've got salt or sugar or anything like that, any kind of fine looking material, police are going to be like, the guns are going to come out, you're going to get arrested. And even if it's super innocent, but like anyone driving around with a large amount of powder, the chances are it's not innocent, right? So yeah, that was his undoing. Was if it had just been a locked toolbox, they'd have been fine. But the powder, I think that was the problem. So
Yeah, well, I mean, partially it was because it was locked, and they're like, "Oh, you got a locked toolbox."
yeah, you're 17. What do you need a locked toolbox for at 3 a.m.? It's kind of more. It lends more credence. What's that?
It's his stealing the tires tools.
That's what I'm thinking. It leads more credence to the. There's a crime in this country, in the UK, called going equipped, which is a really interesting crime. So if you're not caught burglarizing something or stealing something, if you are caught with, like, at 3 a.m. with gloves and, like, a bunch of materials, like a lockpick or, like, a screwdriver or something, you can be arrested for going equipped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really smart thing, especially if, there's suspicious circumstances. And I feel like that's probably the angle they were going with him. Like, he has the materials to steal tires, therefore we'll have him for that. But yeah.
Right. Yes, I see what they're doing. This part of the story, it has me so sidetracked with the fact that these 1990s small town Michigan police had like, they had to have been like, "Oh, what's this powder? Let's do a drug test kit on it." And they're like, "Well, that didn't test right. I feel sick. Why am I glowing?"
Yeah.
And then they were like, "Whoa."
And then the second head that pops out of their shoulder says, "Maybe you should test for radiation." So he's driving around with all this radioactive material. When the police questioned David about the contents of the toolbox, he gave them a story that was both technically accurate and completely insane. He told them he was conducting nuclear experiments in his backyard and that the grey powder was radioactive material he'd been using in his research. The officers laughed instantly, thought he was either lying or just completely delusional. After, what kind of a teenager drives around with radioactive material in the car? In Michigan, I'd imagine it was usually just tons of Golden Draft or something like that. But when their radiation detector confirmed that the powder was indeed radioactive, the police realized they were dealing with something far beyond their experience. This wasn't a case for the local police. This was a matter for federal authorities and/or Captain Planet. Within hours, David's little nuclear reactor had escalated into a full-scale government investigation involving the FBI, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the Environmental Protection Agency. The next morning, federal authorities descended on the Hahn family property, like that scene in E.T., when those fucking scary men in hazmat suits show up and Steven Spielberg's magnum opus stops being about divorce for 30 minutes. EPA officials in hazmat suits swarmed the backyard, armed with sophisticated radiation detection equipment, and we've got a picture there on the live stream. Man, that shed looks fucked. It's completely done. Oh my god. They could have just used their eyes at this point. Like, you don't need the detection materials or the budget. Like, just look into the room. What they found inside was beyond belief. The shed was hot, and by hot I mean radioactive hot. Radiation levels inside the structure were 1,000 times higher than normal background levels, and 5 times higher than the levels found in whatever Don King used to get his hair to stand up on end like he used to do back in the day. The equipment David had built was producing dangerous amounts of radiation, enough to cause serious health problems for anyone exposed to it for extended periods of time. But the contamination wasn't limited to the shed. The radiation had spread throughout the entire property and into the surrounding neighbourhood. David's mother's house was contaminated. The soil in the backyard was contaminated. Even some of the neighbouring properties, I should say, were showing dangerously elevated radiation levels. The EPA officials couldn't believe what they were seeing. He was a 17-year-old boy who had somehow managed to create a legitimate nuclear hazard in suburban Michigan using materials he'd purchased legally or obtained through basic deception.
It's so wild.
It's insane that this happened. And I'd imagine this is the moment, because let me give America a huge amount of credit for this. When something goes wrong in America, typically a lot of people come in and they go, right, well, we can't have this happen again, surely, unless it's a school shooting, in which case just wait a week, you'll get another one. And there are things put in place after this that stop anyone from picking up the phone and going, oh, you sound really interesting, let me tell you. Oh, you sound like a Russian woman, let me tell you how to build a reactor. Like that stops after this. The cleanup operation, as you can imagine, was absolutely massive. The EPA declared the site a Superfund cleanup zone, the name used for major industrial accidents and toxic waste dumps, and sadly not a new water park opening near you this summer. Superfund cleanup zone. Crews in full hazmat gear dismantled David's reactor piece by piece, carefully cataloguing and disposing of each radioactive component. They removed tons of contaminated soil from the backyard. They stripped contaminated materials from inside the house. They even had to dispose of some of David's personal belongings that had become radioactive through exposure. The cleanup cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars and took months to complete. David's mother, Patty, was devastated. She had known her son was conducting science experiments in his shed, but she'd assumed that it was just typical teenager projects, maybe some chemistry experiments or electronics tinkering. Teenagers don't do that in sheds, Patty. Maybe. Just say you thought he was murdering animals back there. That's way more plausible.
Nah. The tinkering with electronics projects is a thing.
Sure.
I mean, this is electric-ish.
I guess so. And I mean, I kind of tinkered with like old radios when I was younger, but like I feel like you do that in your room, right?
Most of the time I was in the shed, I was playing with gunpowder stuff.
There you go. Like you're fucking around with explosives. You were doing a Keith Moon, you know?
I was like redoing ammo.
There you go. And like, to be honest with you, that's, I'd imagine, a really similar thing for a lot of American people that age. Fucking around with shit like that. With me, it was like, I live next to a forest, so I was fucking around in the forest for hours at a time. And that's why I like to go to forests now, to feel relaxed. So, you know, I understand it, but I feel like as a parent, you just check in once, right? You go in, you see what your kid's like involved with, and maybe you just ask a couple of questions, and then, like, if your mind's at ease, that's fine. She didn't do that.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think we might need to outlaw sheds.
Maybe. Sheds are a lot of... Although, if you do that, oh my god, baby boomers are going to be so angry. They're not going to have anywhere to put their train sets or their fucking tool collections. Oh my god. She had no idea he was splitting atoms in the backyard. They discovered that the property had become a nuclear waste site and was a shock that would haunt her for years. Headlines around the world proclaimed the incredible tale of the radioactive Boy Scout who had built a nuclear reactor in his backyard. David became an instant celebrity of sorts, though not the kind that most teenagers would want to be. The media coverage was a mix of fascination and horror. On one hand, David's technical achievement was genuinely impressive. He had successfully created a neutron source and achieved nuclear transmutation using improvised equipment and self-taught knowledge. On the other hand, he'd nearly irradiated an entire fucking neighbourhood and exposed himself to the kinds of radiation you usually only get when you eat at Chipotle. David himself seemed oddly nonchalant about the whole thing. In interviews, he expressed disappointment that his experiment had been shut down before he could achieve his goal of building a working breeder reactor. He showed little understanding of the danger he'd created, focusing instead on the technical aspects of his work. If only he'd been a member of, the Nationalist Socialist Party back in Germany, then NASA would have just fucking snapped him up immediately and just put him on the payroll.
Okay, the breeder reactor is to generate power, yeah?
Yep. Yeah, that's
Okay.
what's happening here.
I'm assuming this is all done after he does his bid in prison. It goes, it goes like the Catch Me If You Can thing, and he goes to work not for the FBI, but for the nuclear regulatory people and makes power for everybody.
Sadly not.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'd want that to be the case. And actually, again, to give America some credit, and it's something that happens now in the rest of the world. You've led the way in this. You work with people that create the problems, effectively. So you work with hackers. You hire hackers. You work with people who have maybe been involved in organized crime so that you can understand how organized crime works. You work with reformed terrorists so you can understand how terrorist cells work. These are all important aspects of building knowledge and bridging knowledge gaps and stuff like that. And again, you're right. They probably should have done this with David, but the consequences for him were vast and ongoing. The incident sparked a major review of regulations governing radioactive materials. How had a teenager been able to acquire so much radioactive material without triggering any red flags? How had he been able to deceive government officials and nuclear experts into providing him with technical information, including actual fucking blueprints? The Nuclear Regulatory Commission tightened regulations on the sale of radioactive material. Smoke detector manufacturers were required to make it more difficult to extract americium from their products. Just use something else for fuck's sake. I know.
Looking at my smoke detector right now.
I mean, this fucking thing sat next to me. I've still got to fix it. So maybe I'll build a reactor. Maybe I won't. Don't do that. Don't think I'm serious. Government agencies implemented new protocols to verify the people requesting technical information about nuclear processes. Are you Russian? Niet. I mean, no. Okay, checks out. Meanwhile, David himself seemed to struggle with the aftermath of his sudden fame. The boy who dreamed of nuclear glory found himself under constant scrutiny. The FBI maintained a file on him, monitoring his activities to ensure he wasn't attempting to resume his nuclear experiments. But David's story was far from over. His obsession with radioactive material didn't end with the cleanup of his backyard reactor. If anything, the attention and notoriety seemed to reinforce his belief that he was destined for nuclear greatness. After high school, David joined the Navy, where he hoped to work with nuclear reactors on submarines or aircraft carriers. No. Just putting a pay to those dreams right fucking now.
But I mean, he knows what he's doing, sort of. Here's how to do it the right way, sort of.
Yeah. Listen, send him to college, but like a really specific, a working college where he can understand working with this material. I think the authorities are worried that he's going to turn into a Spider-Man villain at this point. Like, that's what they're worried about. Like, he's going to fuck around with it.
He's going to learn the right way to do it, and they're not going to detect it next time.
Exactly. Yeah, he's too deceptive for them to kind of let that happen. However, his background as radioactive boy followed him everywhere. While he did serve in the Navy, his nuclear ambitions were effectively crushed by his reputation and the government's ongoing monitoring of his activities. Following his military service, David's life began to spiral downwards. He struggled with mental health issues, substance abuse, and an inability to move past his teenage notoriety. I think you've got a picture of him from later in life. There's a little conjecture about whether his appearance in these pictures, and if you're watching the stream, you can see whether this is as a result of addiction issues and drug abuse, or if it's as a result of radiation stuff.
Right.
But I don't know enough about either to fully say whether it's one or the other. But I mean, this is much later in his life. This is years after the.
This seems like it's close to the 2000s, end of 2000s when he got into trouble. That looks like meth stuff, and the stuff that they look like they got in the corner looks like meth making stuff, which is chemistry.
Yeah. I mean, he's moved from one dangerous thing to another, but one of them's going to make him a lot of money potentially. The boy who had once dreamed.
The other one is meth.
The other one is meth.
I mean, nuclear power.
Yes, that's right. One is dangerous. The other one is socially acceptable. You judge which is which. He once dreamed of becoming a nuclear engineer, but he found himself working a series of dead-end jobs, unable to escape the shadow of his radioactive past. But the most disturbing chapter of David's story is yet to come. In 2007, more than a decade after his initial brush with nuclear infamy, David was arrested again, and once again, radioactive materials were involved. This time, David was caught stealing smoke detectors from an apartment complex in Clinton Township, Michigan, the same town where his original nuclear adventure had been discovered. Police found 16 smoke detectors in his possession, along with suspicious materials that suggested he might be attempting to extract radioactive americium once again, or maybe make meth.
Maybe he's in a time loop. Maybe the flux capacitor worked, and he's in a time loop.
Maybe he knew something we didn't. Maybe he's like, I have to build... Yeah. Maybe he had to build that so that the financial crisis didn't happen and he got arrested and therefore the financial markets fell apart. There you go.
Whoops.
That's my theory. His face was covered in open sores, a condition that some speculated might also be related to radiation exposure, though this was never definitively proven. The once bright teenager who had impressed nuclear scientists with his technical knowledge was now a shadow of his former self. During questioning, David made disturbing claims about his current activities. He suggested that he might be building another reactor, this time in his apartment. He mentioned storing radioactive materials in his refrigerator, apparently believing the cold would somehow contain the radiation. His frozen pizzas must be fucking enormous by now. The FBI opened another investigation, fearing that David might be attempting to recreate his teenage nuclear experiments. David pleaded guilty to attempted larceny and was sentenced to 90 days in jail, so nothing too major, thankfully. The sentence was delayed for medical treatment, suggesting that his physical and mental conditions were serious enough to require professional intervention by this point in his life. It's not good. Really.
Okay, I feel like maybe the radiation poisoning may have messed with his head a little by this point. I think
it did. I think, because also, he's 17. He's still got that kind of teenage energy and enthusiasm and intelligence, but as you get older, obviously things start to change and eventually your brain slows down. But the effects of the radiation poisoning will have obviously affected him physically and, eventually mentally as well, with all the stuff he's been through. So
I think, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but that level of radioactive contamination that was going around at that time back in 94 when he's 17 had to have had some sort of impact on him. I can't imagine that he was wearing like a suit to insulate himself or shield himself.
He was not.
Now, I don't think those are definitely meth scars and stuff. He's doing bad stuff towards the end there.
He really is. I think he's doing a lot of really quite hard drugs, maybe as an escape, maybe to cope with his mental health issues, but it's only going to make them worse.
Radiation poisoning hurts.
Yeah, it kind of tends to kill you, ultimately. So I guess he's lucky that he lived a lot longer, but it's unfortunately about to get worse. The years that followed were filled with continued struggles with addiction, mental illness, and the lasting effects of teenage exposure to radiation. The boy who once was hailed as a nuclear prodigy was now a cautionary tale about the dangers of uncontrolled scientific ambition. On September the 27th, 2016, David Charles Hahn died in Shelby Charter Township, Michigan, at the age of 39. The official cause of death was listed as a combination of alcohol. Oh, God, I'm going to have a real trouble saying this. Diphenhydramine, an antihistamine found in medications like Benadryl, and fentanyl. So, yeah. That'll do it. Big concoction there. Whether his death was accidental or intentional was never definitively determined, unfortunately. David's death marked the end of one of the most bizarre and troubling stories in the history of amateur science. The boy who had once split atoms in his backyard shed died alone, far from the nuclear glory he'd once dreamed of achieving. So what are we to take from David Hahn's story? On one level, it is a genuinely remarkable tale of scientific ambition and teenage ingenuity. David achieved something that most people would consider impossible. He built a functioning neutron source using improvised materials and entirely self-taught knowledge. His technical accomplishment was genuinely impressive, even if his methods were completely reckless. But David's story is also an incredibly cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and inadequate oversight. A 17-year-old boy was somehow able to acquire dangerous radioactive material, deceive government officials, and nearly create a nuclear disaster in suburban Michigan that would level like 3 Mile Island in terms of contamination. The failures that allowed this to happen were systemic and widespread. Perhaps most troubling is what David's story reveals about the accessibility of nuclear materials and information. If a teenager in the 1990s could build a neutron source using household items and mail-order materials, what does that say about our ability to prevent the nuclear terrorism or proliferation? I'd imagine that's a little trickier than what David did, but still. David's story also highlights the importance of proper scientific education and mentorship. His impressive technical knowledge was self-taught and unsupervised, leading to dangerous gaps in his understanding of nuclear safety and radiation. With proper guidance, David's scientific talents might have been channeled into legitimate research that could have benefited society. Instead, we're left with a tragic tale of a brilliant boy whose nuclear dreams became a radioactive nightmare.
Yeah. For real.
That's it, ultimately. Yeah. Imagine if instead of sidelining him and harassing him, the government gave him an opportunity to work with someone who took an interest in his ambition.
Imagine if one of those scientists that was just so fucking eager to talk and chat about what they were doing was like, man, you sound kind of young.
Yeah.
What if we just get you into like some program? What an internship. Nuclear internship here.
Perfect.
Something to not do it in his shed.
Or even like a kind of an unofficial TA, you know, something like that. There's abilities there that can be put to use. I feel it feels like a wasted opportunity with David Hahn. There was a chance for a really interesting story here where he doesn't get involved in drugs and larceny and shit like that. He goes into the academic field. He tells people about the dangers of amateur science and how to do it properly and improperly, and also helps guide people in, you know, doing interesting things and trying things outside of the realm of standard scientific approach. But he does it under guidance and supervision. So
yeah, I feel like this story is all about being surrounded by the wrong people.
I agree. Yeah, like he didn't have any supervision. He didn't have any oversight. He didn't seem to have an awful lot of structure in his life either. And he just kind of took it upon himself to do stuff that nobody else would have done. No teenager in the 90s other than him was really thinking about doing stuff. I think the closest people got at that time were building pipe bombs, literally.
Dude, I think I was building bongs out of, not bombs, bongs out of...
With an N and a G.
Yeah. Out of like soda bottles. And like I was trying to find new ways to do the coffee mug bong. And like I wasn't that scientific at 17, but I was interested in tinkering with things. And I started working on cars. And luckily I ended up hanging around mechanics and things like that. Yeah. I think it's probably harder to end up hanging around nuclear scientists.
I would say so. Even back before people would ask questions like, why is that scientist hanging out with that 17-year-old boy? But like, you know, but you know,
I didn't think about that.
Exactly. Yeah. But also he's in the wrong part of the country for that. Like if he'd been in Berkeley or over in California, he might have fallen in with actual nuclear scientists, but also
White Sands even.
Yeah. Or New York or basically anywhere that's got like a nuclear program. But also, I feel like that entrepreneurial spirit isn't quite there yet in the 90s with kids. Like, kids aren't really encouraged to, because they don't need to. Because their parents are earning good money and paying off their bills. They don't necessarily have to get, like, a high-paying side hustle. Yes, maybe they get a job to help out with the bills and, You know, they work a weekend job or whatever it is, or they work nights or something like that. But they're not like, listen, you have to go down this path and you have to start earning right away. Like, if he'd been encouraged to do that, then maybe he could have been like, listen, I've got an interest in science, and maybe there's a way I can earn money through that. But, you know, that wasn't an avenue that was open to him at the time, because it was the 90s and actual adults were earning enough money to pay for everything most of the time. So
yeah, okay. Well, you're jumping on that it had to earn money. What about he did it because it didn't earn money and he was interested in it, and people do that because it has a scientific benefit and there's research and it's science. And
actually,
like,
yeah.
Take the kid to a university and
Yes.
stuff. Maybe somebody should have been paying attention to the kid.
Yeah, give him a lab, you know? Give him access to a lab. Give him, like, a couple of afternoons a week. The rest of the time he can do theory. And just, like, let him just go for it. You know, we'll have someone in there to make sure that you don't fucking lick the wand or whatever it is and dip it in the thing. But, you know, I also feel like there's also... This is a really interesting opportunity for the EPA as well, because they're now able to study what happens to, like, a suburban environment when a fucking small nuclear device, a dirty bomb, is set off in suburban neighborhoods. They actually learn about the cleanup, they learn about how to do stuff. So in a sort of roundabout weird way, they kind of learn something from that about the devastation that it can cause. So
Hey, thanks, David.
cheers, David. You're not going to prison. Only joking. You're definitely going to prison. But yeah, it's a really tragic story. I feel like there is a missed opportunity here, and it's also a story of what happens when people make a mistake and people sideline them and kind of put them on the peripheries of society. It ends up making things worse, as we see with David Hahn. Like, he tries it again, he starts doing meth, and he's dead before he's 40. Like, this is what happens when you sideline people and when you put them out of society. They end up doing crazy, weird shit, even more so than they did before. So if you have to score David Hahn, I'm also going to allow you to give points to the adults who weren't in the room with him. So yeah.
To every one of the people that just gave him the information on nuclear stuff, you get a 95. To your parents for just being like, he's in the shed whacking it.
Yeah.
You get an 80.
Yeah.
And to David, you get a 75 because, well, you were smart, but you're so dumb.
Oh, kid, yeah. There's a disconnect between I can do this and should I do this? And I think at 17, most people kind of, even though they may feel an impulse to do something, a lot of people will be like, maybe I don't do that.
Maybe he was just too Gen X for his own good.
Yeah. This is a very Gen X crime.
F you, I won't do what you tell me. I'm just going to build a nuclear reactor, and F you won't do it. Take my grandfather clock and get me some radioactive material.
Bunch of smoke detectors. And I don't think this is what Zach De La Rocca was going for with that specific lyric, but
You don't know.
Well, that's true. That's true. I don't. But he is a very, very weird case, and I can't think of too many instances because, you know, when we hear about teenagers making mistakes or, you know, young crime, it's generally involving violence or alcohol or, you know, drugs or something like that. It's really, really rare that it actually involves science and a science crime of sorts. So I think 75 for David Hahn, an 80 for his parents, and a 95 for all of the fucking idiot scientists and people that just, like, let this happen. So it's
just
fair.
To be sure, none of the neighbors got radiation poisoning or sick and died of
the houses
cancer,
were
right?
contaminated, but I think they were okay. Like, no more than, like, oh man, you shouldn't have had those 4 X-rays in a row sort of radiation. Like, you know, maybe you don't have another X-ray for a few years sort of thing. Like, no one's getting cancer from this.
Did he ever make any free power electricity for his house or anything?
No. It feels like a sad, because if he's just like, oh, where can I plug these cables into? He's like, hey, Mom, you don't have to pay for the fucking electricity anymore.
And we're sure at no point he didn't time travel at any point?
We don't know that. I mean, that stuff on his face, that could have been from going through the time portals that he may or may not have built. Yeah.
Asteroids.
Yeah.
In the wormhole.
Maybe that's what he saw when he was doing meth. Anyway, But yes, that's the story of David Hahn, the radioactive Boy Scout who built a nuclear reactor in his garden shed and kind of fucked up a large portion of Michigan. It was a fascinating story. I really enjoyed reading about it. It's the kind of thing, and we speak about this all the time, like, you know, we find people from history and we're like, oh, maybe we cover this person, maybe we cover this person. This story is so weird, we couldn't not cover it. It's so crazy. So
I didn't know that nuclear reactors were so easy to build. That a
Apparently
17-year-old could do it.
Yeah,
It's like a Geico commercial.
It is. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and do it, but I think that A, I wouldn't really want to, but B, you know, it's so expensive now getting hold of grandfather clocks.
I am going to go look at my smoke detector after this to see if there's nuclear reactive material in there.
I've got one right here.
Yeah, let's do this.
Crack this fucker open.
I have never looked at the inside of a smoke detector, although
Yes.
I was reading things about hotels, and they have vape detectors now.
Vape detectors.
Yeah, they detect your vapes.
That's just called, you know, using your fucking eyes. Like anyone's vaping, you can see it from a mile away. But yeah, I can see that. I can't get into this fucking thing. I can see that. And actually, I'm glad that some of these things have changed as a result of David's involvement, because, like, a bunch of new processes have come in place. But also, like, yeah, you know, you can't steal smoke detectors that easily anymore, thanks to this kid. So
You couldn't even get that one open, so...
No, I couldn't, and that's been sat on my desk for months. I'm supposed to put it back on the ceiling and put a fucking battery in it.
Hence the reason it's still going beep every day.
So that's where I'm getting all the headaches from. Jesus. Anyway, so that's our show for this week. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. We had a really fun time researching this and writing it, and yeah, also going back to the mid-90s again. I don't mind a bit of nostalgia for my teenage years.
Oh, I like it in the 90s.
Oh, it was so good, wasn't it? Although there was a lot of hassle in my life at the time, but really compared to now, like, it seems like a walk in the park, to be honest with you.
I was so carefree at that time.
Me too, generally. I was pretty relaxed.
I think I'm just going to go back to being carefree.
Yeah.
That just this comes with just not thinking about anybody but yourself.
I mean, this is yeah. I think what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go back and play all the computer games that I played from that time. Anyway, I've downloaded a bunch of them, so why the fuck not?
I hooked up my Nintendo to the main TV. I might go do that. Oh no, I gotta go to the barbecue. I'll do that when I get home.
Do that after the barbecue. There's your treat for going to the barbecue. You can eat wonderful food. Oh my god, it's like traveling back to the 90s. You can have all the delicious barbecue food, and then you go in and play Nintendo.
I'm playing RC Pro Am first.
Oh man, this is like a 90s dream right now. This is like heaven. My god, and there's me walking through the woods. Something else I did when I was a teenager. Let's fuck off into the forest.
Yeah, that
was
one
a
house you
feral
sent me, though.
Yeah, that was a creepy ass fucking gingerbread looking house.
You need to get
it?
a picture of you standing in the corner for me.
Staring into the corner. Yeah, that's what I imagine goes on in that house. Also, like, I didn't see any. Like, there's no electricity there. There's no running water. That it's a real hermit's house. That thing I sent you. Anyway, we're talking about stuff people won't know. So thank you guys.
If they go to Patreon.
Yes, we'll have to. If you go on Patreon, you will see pictures of this like fucking hermitage that I walked past today in a massive fucking 1,000-acre forest. There is an abandoned house. It is super Blair Witchy. Yeah, I'll put it on Patreon. And if you would like to join our Patreon, go to patreon.com/historysgreatestidiots, where you'll get access to that creepy-ass house, a bunch of recordings that we do, historic sites from all around the world that we visit, and scripts, as well as an annual gift as well, and a bunch of stuff that we don't put on social media as well. We're also on Instagram at History's Greatest Idiots, where you can see a bunch of memes and short-form video content, and also go and watch us on Spotify so we can get some of that wonderful advertising revenue money, which we're getting here, but not on YouTube, because YouTube want us to get 10 million short-form views in a month. Like, that's how you get, and 4,000 subscribers. Like, who fucking gets that?
Maybe you should slap me with a tortilla while I have my mouth full of water, and then it'll happen.
That's it. And then maybe have like a dolphin talking to a cat in the background. Those seem to be really popular.
Happen.
Yeah, that'll work. That should get us enough views.
I can fit an aquarium.
Yeah, maybe Cristiano Ronaldo's in the background as well, because that'll get us a few extra million as well. Let's pull that together. That'll happen next weekend. But thank you guys all so very much for that. I've had a lot of fun with this. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with a brand new episode. Maybe someone a little bit more famous than this crazy kid who ended up building a reactor in his back garden. But until then, Derek, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you all again very soon. Take care now. Bye.